it's nice to be talking about something that I love and I'm engaged with quite a lot, which is the UK battle scene. And Brooke, who's in the room, is actually someone who is, I guess you could say, a bit of a mentor figure within the scene. So big up to Brooke. But yeah, we're going to be talking about battling in hip hop dance culture and kind of going over the history briefly, and then the sort of how that translates into online spaces and whether that kind of helps or harms the culture. So a little bit about me. I'm Lauren. I'm a dancer specializing in popping, hip hop, and also contemporary dance practices. I'm a student in my final year at London Contemporary Dance School. So usually I'm the one on the other side of the screen as well, kind of taking in lectures. So this is something that's a bit newer to me, but I really enjoy sort of sharing knowledge and educating around these things, whether that be teaching or sort of more lecturing, a bit less physical. So yeah, I engage in sort of hip hop theatre as well. Recently created a new piece which was shared at something called Breaking Convention and their artist development program, which is the first picture on the left. That's one of the newest things that I've been working on. And then the middle picture is just a picture from a battle. This was Nike Own the Floor battle in London. And then the one on the far right is me in a mask, also doing a hip hop theatre solo with Breaking Convention. So that's kind of a little bit about me. Within this presentation, we're going to be talking about what is hip hop dance. I'm kind of explaining things from the point of view that, or from the assumption that not everyone knows about hip hop or hip hop dance. So kind of going right back and then transitioning into battles, like what is a battle, how does it work, and then moving into these sort of practices in online spaces. So yeah, first of all, what is hip hop dance and where does it come from? And touching upon some historical context. On the right, there's a picture of the Nicholas brothers, who were jazz dancers. And below that is Soul Train, which is a TV show in which we would see a lot of these sort of popular dances emerge. And I think it's important to address that within sort of the historical context of hip hop culture, where it comes from. Its origin is in African dance and comes from things like vernacular jazz, tap, and as we move through history, things like modern dance and lots of hip hop is a big mixing pot of different influences. But yeah, I'm also coming here today as like a Welsh female mixed woman, and I'm not American, which is also where hip hop emerged. So I think it's just really important to acknowledge that and the importance of respecting and crediting pioneers when engaging with this subject and being a part of this sort of world and practice. So where did it come from? Who made it? I think this footage is really useful in helping explain, and it has some good reference videos. So I'm just going to play this, then we'll talk a little bit about it. Hope everyone can see this.
In August 1973, a young Jamaican-born New Yorker known as DJ Coolher threw a party in the South Bronx. With a pair of turntables, he improvised a technique that isolated and repeated musical breaks That technique would lay the foundation for a genre known as hip-hop.
Hip-hop music emerged from house parties in the Bronx and spread like wildfire between friends and neighbors at block parties. The new sound was electrifying.
In the schoolyard during recess, someone would have a boombox, and then someone would start rhyming. You didn't have recorded versions of hip-hop at that time.
Within a few years, it had become an underground cultural movement, and its distribution was homemade.
You couldn't purchase albums or records, and you couldn't hear hip hop on the radio. The only way that you could participate in the culture musically was through these cassette tapes, which would circulate all throughout the city.
As its influence deepened and broadened, the music spread from the underground onto the radio. In 1979, a group from suburban New Jersey released Rapper's Delight, one of the first hip-hop records.
Now what you hear is not a test, I'm rapping to the beat. And me, the groove, and my friends are gonna try to move your feet.
And the Sugar Hill Gang's hit was just the beginning. As hip-hop evolved, it became a passion shared by millions of young Americans who used it to articulate their identity and their politics, creating a vibrant, multicultural community across the country.
Our generation of young people, we had to find new ways to communicate, just getting on the records and speaking about the truth.
Its lyrics reflected the social and economic conditions of the inner cities as seen through the eyes of the people who lived there.
So don't push me, cause I'm close to the edge. I'm trying not to lose my head. Say what? It's like a jungle sometimes. It makes me wonder how I keep from going under.
I think it was Chuck D who said, it's the CNN of the Black community. It's actually reporting on all of these things that we've experienced in poetry form and musical form.
In 2017, hip-hop surpassed rock as America's #1 stream genre for the first time ever. Decades after its birth, hip-hop has grown from its underground origins in the Bronx to become one of the most popular genres of music throughout the world.
Cool. So yeah, that video kind of recaps some of the original elements of hip hop and how it emerged. And I think, there's a lot of like musical references and video references that we might be familiar with that we, maybe don't realize is a part of this global phenomenon that exists in everyone's world now, I think. Everyone kind of accesses hip hop music, especially on like a day-to-day basis. And kind of understanding that trajectory is really important. So kind of the main points is that it came from Black and Latino youth communities in the Bronx in New York, and hip hop as a culture came from these sort of street parties where there's DJs, and DJ Kool Herc, who was referenced in the video, is considered one of the founders of hip hop, and created something called the break, which is in music where they would kind of sample or loop parts of the beat. And that would also be the point where a lot of breakers would come in and then start dancing on that part of the music. Also, there's club culture, social dance, ciphers and battles. And a cipher is a circle that people will dance in, and they kind of happen organically a lot of the time. And also battles and exchanges, sort of dancing in a conversation or a response to one another, would also exist in ciphers. And prior to this, we have like vernacular jazz, tap, Afro dance, and all these kind of lots of elements that come into what hip hop dance is today. So that's kind of a touch on hip hop culture, and within hip hop culture, there's hip hop dance. Dancing or breakdancing is one of the 5 pillars of hip hop, and the 5 pillars are MCing, which is an abbreviation of Master of Ceremonies, which is the person who's on the mic. There's the DJ, breakdancing, graffiti, and knowledge, which is this awareness of hip hop culture. And hip hop music kind of what we understand hip hop music to be today, emerged as a result of hip hop culture. So it came kind of after this was all happening. And so did hip hop dance. So it can kind of get a bit confusing. And this took quite a while for me to understand, like, the difference between hip hop dance, street dance, like what is within what. So there's hip hop dance, which came from, well, is associated with hip hop music. And it's a style of dance that has kind of a set vocabulary that we associate with hip hop music. But hip hop culture is kind of a bit of a broader idea of the music, the graffiti, MCing, and so on. And then there's street dance, and hip hop dance is also under street dance, you could say. And street dance involves the dances that weren't necessarily made at the time that this hip hop culture emerged. So we have like locking and popping, which came before. And then we have whacking and punking, and breaking came from hip hop culture. So it can be a bit of like, what are all these pieces? But yes, these sort of styles, these sub-styles of street dance are listed here, some of them. So we have hip hop, which, as I said, came from hip hop culture. We have house dance and crump, and then one of the newer ones is called light feet, which came from Harlem, New York. So yeah, and all these different styles, they came from different parts of the US as well. So popping and locking came from more of the West Coast, and then hip hop was on the East Coast, house, Chicago and New York. Crump is LA, I believe. I think it's LA, but the West Coast, and light feet is on the East Coast. So all this information was kind of being absorbed in different spaces and had a lot of influence on one another. Hip hop dance, one of my teachers tells me that hip hop dancers were just trying to copy poppers, and they were just doing it badly. And then that's how hip hop emerged as a style. So yeah, it's like all of this, they all feel connected in some way. This is Buddha Stretch from Elite Force Crew, and in this video he defines what real hip hop dance is.
What's up? This is Buddha Stretch, Elite Force Crew, Mount Top Foundation. I am a hip hop choreographer, pioneer, and all-around dance student and historian. When I say that I'm a pioneer, that means I helped create what is called hip hop today. In fact, I'm the reason it's called hip hop, because in an interview like this one, the people asked what style of dance was that I was doing, and I said hip hop. And they asked why. I said because it's to hip hop music. We only do these dances to hip hop music. How many people can legitimately say they're hip hop? There are maybe a handful, maybe not even a handful, as many as I got fingers and toes about. That's about it. I mean, hip hop as a dance culture, from the roots of it till now, there aren't very many people who actually know the beginnings and know about hip hop now. Here in 2009, hip hop is considered an umbrella, and they like to stick all street dances under that umbrella, like popping or locking or b-boying. But those dances have an entirely separate history. Hip hop is, again, what I and my crew do. It's basically social dancing, or as the b-boys call it, party dancing. But you take all the social dances and you spontaneously mix them up, and that's what hip hop is. If you call yourself a hip hop dancer, or even better yet, a hip hop choreographer, and you don't know the latest hip hop steps from all around the country, or any of the original hip hop dances, then exactly what are you choreographing? Let me just say this. When did Britney Spears become hip hop? So if you're calling yourself a hip hop choreographer, yet you're not dancing to any hip hop music, first and foremost, hip hop is a culture. It's not a dance, it's a culture, and the dance is an expression of that culture. It's nice that you can say you've choreographed some pop stars. So have I. That doesn't mean that you were doing hip hop. You were doing whatever you thought to the music.
So yeah, in that video, he kind of reiterates this idea that hip hop dance as a style is separate and is often done to hip hop music. And yeah, it gives a bit of a comment on like commercial dance and a bit of a dilution in hip hop and its authenticity as it kind of enters these more commercial spaces, as you referenced Britney Spears. So moving forward, I just want to pause there. Actually, we haven't got a whole lot of time, but if anyone wants to like say anything or ask anything or has made any notes before I move on to battling about what we've seen about just a very quick overview of hip hop and its pioneers, and it can be a bit confusing, but yeah, I'll just take a moment.
Anyone in the room or online?
If not, that's all good.
I've got a question. So you know the list that you had of street dance and then hip hop dance culture.
Yeah.
Can new things be added to this list, and how does that happen? When do you know that it's emerging in the community, in the culture?
Yeah, well, the one at the bottom is Light Feet, and Light Feet occurred in like the mid 2000s. I think it was like 2005 in Harlem, and it came from young guys kind of mixing parts of hip hop, parts of like jazz. It's got a lot of jazz elements in it, but it kind of developed its own language and its own vocabulary. And then I think later on, after that's more established, it kind of just it feels related to hip hop dance, but they would consider it its own style now. And there's sort of events and categories specifically to Light Feet. And as far as I'm aware, that's one of the newest kind of like emerging substyles of hip hop dance. So yeah, like it's been what, like 15 years, like under 20 years since the first sort of Light Feet elements kind of came about, and since then it's continued to develop. Also, it's got its own music, which is another element of the dance, like it being quite closely connected to a specific genre. So we have Light Feet dance and like Light Feet music. So yeah, I don't know what the rule is, but I think just as things develop and sort of solidify themselves and feel more distinct or have their own identity that feels quite clear, then you could say it's a new sort of emergence of a style. But hip hop and Light Feet feel very similar in a lot of ways. But if you know the kind of distinctions, you can appreciate that there are differences in vocabulary, for example.
Thank you.
That's okay. So there's not a whole lot of time left, but I'm just going to go into the craft of battling. So what is a battle? How does it work? And who decides who wins? Does anyone know anything about battling that they'd like to share, potentially some of their initial responses to these questions? What a battle is. You can also take a guess if you've never seen a battle or engaged with it, or maybe seen it in a movie. What do you think it is?
Just raise our hands if we know what battling is. Yeah, James and Lucy. That's good.
So not so many in the room, Lauren.
I mean, for me, I'm like,
yeah.
Is that the stuff at the Olympics? Is that related at all, or yeah, you know?
Yep. Yeah. So breaking at the Olympics. That's battling. Anything else?
I have seen dance battles. It's not like typical hip hop. I'm a hip hop dancer myself, but it's not a hip hop dance. It's like we blend the hip hop style and steps into different, like Bollywood dance. So we blend the hip hop style and steps onto that. So I have seen dance battles, but not the typical hip hop battles.
Do you call it hip hop though?
Sorry?
Do you call it a battle?
So we call it a dance battle, where we basically include all the dance styles: locking, popping, break dance, freestyle, contemporary, and hip hop as well.
Cool. Yeah, there's some categories within battling that are called like all style battles, which is often you can enter and it's less style specific. And then you also have like experimental battles, which I feel encompasses more of this like contemporary lens or approach, sort of different styles. But what I know of all styles is that it's usually with street dance styles in mind, and the music associated with street dance styles. But yeah, you can blend, and people definitely do create like fusions of styles. So a battle, it's most of the time, well, actually in the beginning it would be spontaneous in nature and come from a cipher. Now we have more organized battles, and with like the corporatization of battling and breaking, for example, like in the Olympics, it's more organized and specific and less organic, you could argue. And in a battle, you can have two people, you can have so two people against each other, or you could have like 2v2, which is duets against each other. You can have crew battles, and there's different iterations of battles in different types of formats that you can present them in. So it's a lot about like communicating to the music, trying to one up your opponent. There's a focus on music, your personal style, creativity, and originality. And some of these elements go into judging the criteria for who wins. But that's like a whole other thing, like judging and what makes a good judge, and how it's judged, which is also some of the discussion that came up about the Olympics, and people watching not really knowing how you win or how you recognize that one skill is more than another. And it can get a bit confusing and controversial as well, because some would say that you're also judging like an art form, which is subjective as well. And this sort of idea of sport versus art is something that came up a lot around the Olympics. Oh, it's also freestyle. So the dancers don't sort of like pre-make routines. They can, but most of the time it's freestyle. And also the DJ plays music that the dancers don't know is going to come on. So there's elements of like being able to listen to music, respond to your surroundings, feed into the crowd, and also just get the room on your side in a way helps sometimes with battles. So this is kind of just going through. You can have it in a solo, 2v2, crew. This idea of an all-style battle, like I said, but there's also style-specific battles. So you can have popping battles, locking, house, hip hop, and a lot of events now are in sort of qualifier or tournament style formats. There's bigger cash prizes coming in, sponsorships from like brands such as Nike or Red Bull, even like Mercedes and like car brands and stuff are sponsoring dancers now, which also helps dancers take something that it's more of like a hobby or a side thing, and can make it their career and their profession. And also battling influencing pop culture. We see elements of battles in campaigns. There was the Nike campaign with a lot of the Olympic breakers, and the 2024 Olympics, making it really mainstream and on like just making this part of hip hop culture really loud on a global scale. So there's big events basically now where we see battles in mainstream media. The Olympics, Red Bull have some really big competitions called BC1 and Dance Your Style, which tend to go viral as well on social media, things like TikTok and Instagram. And now that they're on such a big scale and so accessible, people who aren't able to make it to battles can participate and watch. And also, like in COVID, there was a lot of online battles where you'd have judges reviewing pre-recorded footage, and you would battle in that sense as well, which is really interesting because a lot of it comes from like the space and the energy that's cultivated in the space. So when we see battles move online, like a lot of that shifts how we perceive the movement, how we engage with the music as well, it not being sort of like really loud. And the audience and the crowd has like a real impact on the energy of the space in battles when you go to see them in person. And that shifts a lot when you put it online. So this is a question that I'm offering. How might we experience battling differently in online spaces? Whether you're the participant, so the person taking part in dancing, or the audience. So how might it be different than in person, for example? But also the positives in like accessibility, for example, like how you can access elements of hip hop dance and street dance virtually now, which allows you to be a part of something that you might not have immediate access to. So yeah, just have a moment to think about that, and then we can discuss some things.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Lauren. Let's sit up here. So
that's okay.
Oh, did anybody have any kind of immediate reactions, Lauren, or anybody like to hazard an answer?
My thought is like, where how do you create spontaneity online? Because there's no like spark in the room, and I can imagine that just is really hard to replicate. The sort of like, I've heard something in the music, I'm going with that, and the audience has heard it too, and they're with me. Yeah, that is my biggest question, is like, how does that even work?
I suppose some of the pictures that you've shown as well, Lauren, it looks like a spectacle.
Yeah.
Even the places in which the kind of battles are taking place, like one looked like it was a kind of a cathedral type space. There's something about designing that spectacle, and like you say, that kind of that instantaneous reaction,
like seizing the moment.
Yeah.
I imagine that's hard to do online, but maybe not. But okay.
Do you have any kind of comments on that, Lauren?
Yeah, definitely. Battles are kind of like a conversation, and if you're pre-recording your sort of like response to a conversation that's happening, or it's like two different things. Whereas in a live battle, you often respond to so many things going on, like what your opponent is presenting. Could be just pure the vibes of the room, like where people are at, if it's the start of the day, the end of the day. Like there's so many elements that go into how you respond to your opponent in that, like say 45 seconds to a minute. And when you kind of, for example, in like pre-recorded battle rounds, which is a lot of what we saw in lockdown, you eliminate so many of those aspects. And also like you can keep recording, so you can almost practice what you're going to present, or like no one knows if the round that you've submitted for an online battle is kind of in that moment, or you've taken like 300 attempts to hit that music in that particular way or something. So
Have
yeah,
you done that yourself, Lauren?
I have,
you
yeah,
taken part
yeah.
in online?
Yeah, I
And
have.
how was the experience for you? How different was it?
Oh, it's so different. I was doing it in my bedroom in COVID, kind of, yeah, submitting videos that I'm sure I didn't film just once. And yeah, like it means that my response is not in direct relation to anyone else's, whereas typically in a battle it is, and it's what makes the battle, the exchange, is that kind of direct like physical language and conversation that emerges. Yeah. Saskia.
Hey,
Yes.
beautiful people. This is something that I find, sorry, can I, yeah, this will good. I find really, it's such an interesting question, because my main conversation with myself since becoming chronically ill 5 years ago, which meant that I couldn't access these spaces anymore. My question was never how to translate it into an online thing, which now I think about it is really interesting. It was always, how do I access them again, through the work that I then endeavored to do through creating my own company and delivering access coordination and understanding my lived experience as a disabled person and the resilience and creativity of the disabled dance and just disabled community in general. And so, yeah, like I've been investigating over the past 4 or 5 years all the aspects that make a battle inaccessible to me, whether it's like the sound barriers, the loudness, how late it is in the day, how long it goes for, breaks or not. Quite, there's so many elements, and I'd be so excited, and I am so excited to be in a space finally after so long where I'm actually maybe considering re-entering to implement, to support and help and offer these ideas to make it possible. But no, I just wanted to bring a thought to the space, which is like, I'd never thought about it being online for all of these reasons, that I didn't think it would be possible. However, through We Are Sensoria, which is my company, like we've been building these community solidarity online spaces, one of which is the chronically chill sessions for chronically ill, chronically chill people. And in the last session that we had the other week, 3 or 4 out of the 7 people were hip hop dancers, which blew my mind, because it's an open space for like any artist of any community member. So we have writers come through, the design artists, musicians, etc. And I had 3 or 4 hip hop dancers in this one room, and one of them was in hospital joining us. One was, and they were telling us how they were dreaming, how they were coping with being housebound, was like dreaming of hip hop choreographies in their head. And there was lots of sharing in the chat about like their different dance styles and creativities and how they were accessing them in isolation or online, and we were finally just sharing them in conversation. So I think there could be a space for it, like, because then we joked about making like a chronically chill session just dedicated to making hip hop choreo from our beds on Zoom. But I think it has to be, and also, sorry, this will be the last thing I say, like I do also translate, when I think about how I've battled chronic illness, I know that I would not have the resilience and strength that I have if it wasn't fully existing in the battle scene for 4, 5, 6, 7 years prior. It's that mentality of like, I'm gonna beat this thing, because you don't need to beat disability or chronic illness, it's a part of you, but how do I meet it? How do I meet it in the fullness and the rawness of my authenticity? And how do I create a conversation with that? And so honestly, I think there's a huge scope and possibility there. But for me, it comes from solidarity and community building first. So I'm going to go back into my space and investigate that. So yeah, no, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's really cool. And another kind of element within all of this is kind of, yeah, like the psychological parts of battling and the mindset that comes from it, which we haven't even like began to touch on, and sort of the mental approaches that and the psychology that happens when you're in a battle. And I saw someone delivering a TED talk once, and it said that during a battle, a dancer has like a very similar sort of what's it called, stimulation, you could say, as someone who's solving like a maths equation. And it's so true. There's so many elements happening in your responsiveness to the music, those around you. Again, you're performing, hearing a song that you might have never heard before, and you've got to kind of like step up to the plate mentally, not only in front of an audience, but to an opponent to beat them as well. And there's so many mental components and resilience and courage that comes from participating or moving within these battle spaces. That I totally think there's ways that can translate, like online for sure. I think particularly during lockdown, like it was kind of a thing of just like, okay, how do we put on battles online? Whereas I think if we dig back into that and how we can really platform and provide better access to events and the sort of the stuff that happens in the room, how do we translate that into online spaces in a way that is able to still connect people, particularly for those who can't access it, is really, really important and a good thing to think about. So thank you.
Thank you both. I'm just aware of time. Did you have a question that you wanted to?
I guess it just be a really short one. It was more, do you think you can call it a battle if it's pre-recorded? I understand that, like, do an online battle. Do you think you call it a battle if it's already recorded?
It's a good question. I think you could call it, sometimes you could say it's, I don't know, I was going to say you could call it an exchange, but also an exchange kind of requires you to be in response to the person who you're in front of. I'm not quite sure what we could call it. Maybe there's a new word for it, because it kind of takes away the element of what a battle is, because you could see it as it's a pre-recorded round. It could be, you could call it a round, which is you responding to the music. But calling it a battle when it's online, I think you could definitely question.
Maybe we could spend the next 5 minutes thinking about that as we change the room. So thank you ever so much, Lauren. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Oh, mic's off. Oh dear, mic's been off.
Can they hear now? Can
you hear now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Perfect. You haven't really missed anything. Just me waffling on about what I'm wearing, or James telling everyone he's wearing a Burberry shirt. So that's all you've missed really. So yeah, then we're going to close the discussion back in our seats and I'm working on this presentation. There we go. I'm going to do a little bit of a Carol Gordian. I've got my flip chart here and I'm going to start writing things on it. It's not going to be sums. I never actually passed my math GCSE, but it's going to be sort of words, thought, things that we're going to gather from today's session. And just to let you know, everything that we offer is an invitation. We're hoping for you all to get involved as much as you want to, but please don't feel like you have to. If you want to sit down, if you want to leave the room, completely up to you. So yeah, hip hop is a culture. That's our starting point today. So James and I and rapper KRS-One, we experience hip hop as a culture, not as a style of dance or a genre of music. So rap is something you do, hip hop is something you live. Culture is a complex concept for which Professor of Sociology Evitar Zorbal believes we cannot assume a shared understanding. So everybody comes at this from a slightly different angle. And to ensure that this discussion is able to offer cross-cultural insights beyond the parameters of just hip hop, I'm going to try and break down culture into 3 defining features to hopefully avoid producing multiple enclaves of meaning. So the first one is a series of codes and conventions. So considering culture as made up of a series of codes and conventions and how that fits into hip hop. The next one is a set of practices and products. And the third one is a shared reality. So a series of codes and conventions. Culture is composed of a series of codes and conventions, and we learn to live in relation to each other through a succession of codes, of customs and codification. And these are shared and agreed upon. So cultural commandments, or as rapper Notorious B.I.G. spits, a manual, a step-by-step booklet of shared tenets, serve to compose a framework, a concept of culture from which, for semiotician Roland Barthes, we shape our lives and express our condensed essence, our humanness. So consider the 10 Commandments as an example, and I'm going to provide more information on codes and conventions a little later on. So hip hop generates a set of practices and ritual of creative expression using visual forms of art, music, and dance. The making of these arts is not limited to a mode of representation, but extended into an expulsion of the inner self, a conscious choreography of our emotions, imagination, and critical thinking. So the ritual of making art is an embodiment of shared ideologies. It's an articulation of established meanings, which can yield a tangible cultural output or product. So in an inextricably linked dialogue with music, the cultural practice of breaking being the cultural dance of hip hop, becomes the hieroglyph of being of culture. And as observed by interdisciplinary scholar Dr. Imani Kai-Johnson, breakers do not just interpret the music, they are a physical manifestation of a social relationship to the rhythm. So we're also a literal representation, culturally posing in a b-boy stance, as seen here. This is the typical, the iconic b-boy stance, which has been captured in photographs for cultural archives, caricatured and painted by graffiti writers, and a style guide for those wanting to emulate or appropriate. Culture manages the concept of a shared reality and contours our identity. So through cultural transmission, we commune with others, building common experiences and values. Professor Cantor explains that as we invest in the group, its meaning becomes fused with our identity. So we're starting to see how culture and potentially hip hop is more than just a perceived style of dance. That through its association with culture, through it being a culture, it's also tied in with our identity. By participating in culture, we influence its evolution with daily rituals interwoven into our lives, like brushing our teeth and cups of tea. And through that, we reinforce our role as both products of and producers of culture. So if we understand hip hop as a culture, as an embodiment, lived communal experience substantiated through its constituent artistic modes of expression, music, visual forms of art and dance, then we can begin a critical breakdown of the wider implications of its legacy, the responsibility it carries, and its evolving role in the digital era.
Yeah. So dance's migration online and its ramifications on the cultural nuances of hip hop, specifically breaking. So coming at this both as breaking artists, but also deeply interested in the culture and communities that practice breaking. Dance online can cause or allow denigration of culture. Art forms originally created in localized communities are shared globally without sensitivity to context, causing a loss of cultural underpinnings and nuance that define their essence. Online dance, such as shared on social media, often isn't conducive to nuance and naturally fosters polarized opinions and communities. Think about almost all social media seems to polarize people into one or the other extreme sides of a camp, and it doesn't really support the middle ground. If you sit on the fence and you're considered to be a coward, you know, if you think about the space like Twitter, it also pushes young people into these spaces as soon as they're into it, as soon as they're allowed on social media, whether they're allowed to be on it or not at 13, they are forced into these polarized spaces. The digital world is a competitive marketplace, and digital marketing capitalizes on our attention, our clicks and habits. So, Ken Swift, one of the originators of breaking as we know it today, in an interview with Too Much Flavor magazine from 2011, B-boy is a lost art, and it's not completely lost, but there's not that many real B-boys out here. And it's this sort of echoes Brother Stretcher's interview in Lauren's talk as well. There is this feeling from the older generation that that's not to do with the amount of dancers out there that are practicing. It's about the integrity of the pool of dancers that are practicing. So when he's talking about real b-boys, the emphasis is on the real, and also b-boy is a term that we use often for all dancers across the art form, so it can reflect boys and girls. So he's talking about the dance being misrepresented, the thing that can be exacerbated by dancers' online virility. We'd now like to invite you to use the pens and post-its to write down your thoughts, questions, solutions, or ideas you have about the prompt.
Take one in hand.
Dance's migration online and its ramifications on the cultural nuances of hip hop, specifically breaking, or if it relates to your other art forms, that's also great and interesting. I'm sure that you find or navigate some kind of connection between the two.
Become very.
So again, specifically, thoughts, questions, solutions, or ideas. Anything that comes to you.
Oh, look at that. Pink and pink. And yeah, these online.
I was going to say, anything on. Yes, there is a question. Do you want me to write it down? The question online? Or show it on the screen?
If you're only up with the original post, do go around and see something else.
They can't see the slides.
There you go. Have you got three papers? Which colour do you want? Okay, so you
stopped sharing it.
Yeah. I know, but they're not using the music on while we do it. So Can people see the screen?
Yes, they can see it at the moment. That's what they're seeing.
And indeed, everybody.
Oh, here.
Yeah. No, we're not going to let you look at the screen. So we're just going to put that screen back up to give you a little bit of a reminder of what we're talking about. Any thoughts, any responses, and I'm going to play a little bit of music. Keep on for a moment. Yeah, we're going to stick on.
Black sheep, what's the black sheep? Now know who I am, or when coming to your sleep. Welcoming my armor wasn't in your sphere. You know who I am, but listen here.
You say excuse.
But yeah, just take the time to write any thoughts, any responses you have to anything that we've said, or just things that it's just made you think of that you might not even think is relevant. Keep holding for a moment. And right, another one. Stick them all over you. Keep going. And then in a minute we're going to come up. We're going to add into it.
Yes.
Here's the black sheep. Even if we wanted to, so fucking I mean, why would it like this? Why should I want to like that? Because it's fact, only you might not attract. Therefore, I ignore. It's up here inside. I live with me. I've got my back tonight, you know what I'm saying? Yo, black, I'm not playing. Neither go.
Okay, we'll give you another few counts,
They can't be, I made it look easy because it is for me. Anytime capacity was built, try to lock it. Anytime a honey does its play, try to lock it. We're going for the full. So we finish school. Never see us sweat and you'll never see us drool. Out to work the ball while still here to rock. Don't punch girls and we don't punch our clock. We got us no matter. Go see you later by the cat and you can't be fat. We'll go back.
That was my moment, wasn't it? Back. Press stop after back. Okay.
I'll tell you what now.
Go. Oh, big reveal. Put your pen down. No more writing after this. No more writing.
Okay, so Lucy wrote some categories up there. I didn't do anything. As you all saw, I was chatting. So Lucy wrote image crafting, rise of individualism, or the rise of individualism, loss of cultural context, and other distorting factors. So these were some categories that we sort of thought of in advance as things that we think are factors that affect dance online, specific to breaking, but also could be more general. And we're sort of have been thinking about and talking about in our practices with Synchro. So if your post-its fit in any of these, could you come and stick them on the board? If you don't feel like they fit in any, could you put them in distorting factors and we'll just work through them.
Further to our discussion, I actually put distorting in brackets, so that it might not be a distorting factor.
I didn't read the brackets. You don't like?
I don't. But anyway, I was being generous.
Okay, so you've got the rest of the song now from the back to the end.
And so this is where you got to get up and you go across the circle.
Cheers.
Okay.
You can get with this, or you can get with that. That's what this is where it's at. Now you can get with this, or you can get with that. I think you get with this, yes, well, this is kind of fat. If you get with that, then you will surely miss because that is so whack. I think you'll get with this. Put in the day in my life, forever the life for my days. Never sweat the chaos, I'm back to that way. How shall I say it? Take the quick convey it. Starting is quick, yes, I know before you play it. Not to be on that belt, all that is my goal. Stumble and fall, brother, like truck with gold. Eat a sexy honey for a twilight stroll. Game up for sushi. Give me your neck roll. A&W. Get to the roof with a boot or sneaker. Get near a stinker. Come up to a single to a condo with a fly hole. That's the scenario. And pass a plate up. Cross the fade up. Black sheep getting played like a Sony and a beta.
Okay, cool. Okay, thanks for your ideas. I literally, because they're all there, I can't see one single one of them, so I literally have to take some time to read through them. You Had to Be There stands out as a semi-cryptic. Is that yours, Brooke? You want to give it a shout? What do you mean by You Had to Be There? Just so that people know.
Someone said this and it resonated with me. I'm trying to think of who it was. That's why I keep looking at my phone, because I'm trying to. Hopefully by the end I'll be able to take a look.
Right.
But anyway, she just said, now when we're if we go back to some of the footage we've seen and spoken about, it's like if you go back to New York in the 70s, it was only in the city where you would see this. You didn't even hear it on the radio. The clubs or the parties that all heard other people put on, you had to be there, right? Now it's like you actually don't have to be there. Not in, and I'm not saying that in positive. It is positive too, depending on how you look at it. But if something's happening in Japan now, we'll see it in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, so like when you go to these events, even if you are there, a lot of the time you're half here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But some of the best experiences you have, not let me say me, I was just saying, but some of the best experiences I have are just, it's only a memory. There's no footage of it, there's no pictures of it. But that's when you're not thinking about your phone, when you're not looking at it online, you're just in the experience, you're just taking it in as it is, and that's it. And I think that's not better, but being there in the moment is like untouchable. So yeah.
And then there's something there that Bart talks a lot about in terms of the rhetoric of the image and how the photograph is evidence. You know, if you're in that photograph in that moment, I was there, I'm part of this. And obviously with social media now and AI, that can all be changed. So you can create that false reality, that false remembering. And then of course that's going completely contradicting with what you're saying about how the moment that you felt that weren't necessarily captured, that were just in that moment, are the ones that for you hold true, and they were the best moments. And how we put all of these things together in a digital era where it is so prevalent.
I think that goes across a lot of different types of dance as well. I find a lot of the time when I speak to people that aren't, like they're not necessarily they wouldn't say they're a dancer, or they maybe don't work in or around dance, but that's why people come to it now, because there is so much like going on around us that you can just be in it. And like mentally it's a great place to forget everything else. And I think that's it brings us back to something in our humanity, doesn't it, that we crave in that sense, not just probably in breaking or hip hop styles, like just in the general.
And there's that big pull towards mindfulness, isn't there? And being in the moment. And, yeah. Can we get back up? I see everybody snuck down into the comfort of their this isn't escaping me. So yeah, please, I invite you to stand back up. We're just going to create, just make sure that we don't block this camera. We're just going to create this sense of standing in a circle. So as Lauren explained in the previous presentation, a lot of dance in hip hop happens in a circle. A circle is a space which is a sacred space for dance in many cultures. And breaking was created with a circle in mind. It was actually started in parties where people would move around to create space to make them dance, to allow them to dance, rather than everybody standing aside and going, right, okay, now it's going to happen. It would actually, people would form that circle. In breaking the movements are circular. A lot of the movements are circular originally. Now, and this is another conversation, but now a lot of the technique has changed because it's trying to realign with the needs of a larger stage space. But that's for later. Yes, I call it a circle. I was brought up in hip hop in the 80s when circles were circles and ciphers were for rappers. So for me, a lot of my peers, it will always be a circle to us, but that doesn't detract from it being a cipher for other people. So I just want to take a moment to, and obviously we want to keep this not a closed circle, but I just want to close in a little bit. And just for you to get a sense, yeah, please come and join us. Yeah. To get a sense of standing in this small space next to people. You're sort of hemmed in by people, but you're also part of something. So here we're all projecting our energy into the space. We're all facing each other. This is an open. There's nobody sort of turning away, and it's an open space. And just check in for yourselves and just notice just how that feels. It might feel like you're ready to go, or you might feel the power of that person next to you and feel a unity here. Maybe the idea of a circle is quite triggering and it's sort of like, oh my God, now we've got to dance, now we've got to go into the middle and do something. But just notice what comes up for you, or nothing might come up. And what we're going to do in a moment is I'm going to play some music and I'm going to invite you to enter the circle. It's an invitation, and I'm not asking you to come out and do like a massive sort of like 30-minute solo. It's just if you want to respond to the music and come in the space, then you can. However, there are rules, and this is where we come back to the codes and conventions that I spoke about earlier in the definitions of culture. So I've kind of come up with them. Oh, have you got that? Is it this one here?
Oh, you want a slide?
Yeah, please.
I was just staring, yeah.
While Lisa's setting up, these sometimes are called cipher etiquette, or circle etiquette, and they are unspoken rules that are broken all the time, but they are often reinforced by the people in the circle. So what we can tell often what feels off or wrong, and the deeper entrenched you get in the community, the more you know these rules for writ.
So yeah, then it's not complete by any means, but things that could create problems if you're not aware with the etiquette are not knowing the cultural cues to begin a circle, being able to identify a circle as open, crew or battle, exclusive to solo performances, or understanding if when group-based dance is appropriate, taking turns, call and response format. So that's something that Lauren spoke about, again, about that exchange. The duration. So circles generally are sort of like a 30-second thing, not a 5-minute, it's all about me moment. Choking the circle. So when everybody's like trying to get in and the circle's getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and you're not giving each other the respect and the space. Measuring energy and experience. So noticing if somebody's going in at a chill pace and everybody's kind of enjoying that vibe, you wouldn't then go in and attack, unless there's a strategy at play. So again, like Jane said, there's always kind of a flip side, but if you know what you're dealing with, then you can flip it. Call outs. So the difference between everybody just coming in and out when they want to and somebody actually calling you out. You're coming in after me, okay? So yeah, the full etiquette is not limited to these, but they can attempt to illustrate an idea of these important cultural nuances, and that if they're left attended can result in a micro death of culture. So with the invitation, I'm just going to play some music, and let's just see what happens. Let's just see what happens.
What's going to happen? Like music.
I'm going to take these guys in first. Yeah.
Just like you. Relax my mind so I can be don't sound like keep me round on my day. Constantly with no worries, just to keep growing. Just like you. Going to keep me going and keep me growing and keep me to eat from knowing what happens out there. It's not my concern. You want to die, it's not my turn. Just like you. Do something to me like jumping the Mercedes on the highway, doing over 80 without music, baby. Just like you. My homie on the phone, like there's something new out that got me in the zone. Just that feeling got me. I wish music can adopt me. Just like you. The music. Put me in the mood with my woman, got me in the air, singing sweet nothings, make love come out the mouth, no frontin', like all of a sudden. Just like music. Take away your worries and cares, any problems, music will be right there. Together match, yo, be a perfect pair. Is that true, Marvin? Yo, to get you the famous body soul snatcher, universal language. It be the light, so open up. This is it. What the fuck? Just like music. One fly tune to have black and white vibe in one room. No complication, party all night. It's just a sensation. Just like music. Baby, music makes us dance every day. Just like music makes us bounce so bad, baby. No music, just like yours. It won't be never you can be just like pressure can't go happiness days that the summer waves. I love your music.
Oh, okay, I just want to pause in that moment. Thank you, everybody that have done that. Amazing. But I want to ask if you recognise what changed, how the dynamics of the church circle changed then, and what you witnessed, if anything.
Start the music was.
Rewind, so a little bit before that. Yeah, where did we go? What was the journey that we went on?
It actually created a vibe.
A vibe, yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to say a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, we cannot experience the same vibe in online. If we are having an online session, we cannot have this kind of vibe there.
Yeah.
Maybe we could ask the online community.
Yeah.
Does it age? Also, like, there was like a softening. Like at the beginning, it was like, I'm alone, I'm an individual, and then by the end of it, it was like, oh, we're playing. It was like became a game, became a softening of like ego somehow.
Right.
And everyone was just, we're all just humans together, rather than being like individual spotlight. It became more, just soft.
Thank you.
Soft and play. And definite visual cues, people looking and inviting. So it's kind of like you're not saying you're coming in next, but
I'm looking at you, so you're coming in next. Yeah, just building a relationship. Exactly, and that was really interesting because there was that exchange and that sort of like looking at each other and coming encouragement. But then the reason that I stopped it at that point was because James had deliberately gone for Lauren. He called Lauren. Lauren had then responded. You know, she was in the moment of responding when I cut her off. So from watching it from a culture perspective, the circle is now closed to everyone else. The focus is on these two. So what is going to happen in this conversation, which is where we're going to pick it up.
Oh. Got sort of
5 minutes. Yeah, perfect.
Keep going along.
Again, some really interesting things happened there because Lauren did not want to battle James. She threw her attention onto Anna. Anna then did what should happen and come out and respond, but James was not letting go of it. James was like, no, let's start this battle, and so he made sure he hit the floor before Anna did, which meant he owned the circle. So all these little things come into play about the cultural nuances, the things that are calling us as a community. We understand these things in this circle as part of a culture, if that makes sense. So yeah, I cut that short because we are running short of time. Thank you very much. That was not expected. So please take your seat, and we're just going to have a quick chat about the things that you put up and bring that to bring that in.
Saskia says that was the vibiest online session I've seen participated in.
Well, it's 3 o'clock. Are people okay if we carry on just for a little bit?
Yes. Do you want me to whiz through my copy for these?
Yeah, great. Finish.
So I wrote a few things quickly about these 4 categories that we come up with. So image crafting, as you can see by the first slide, changing your appearance online, both literally, physically, and in the way you present yourself. There's a pressure to image craft on social media, and a content creator's relationship to their online audience is often not conducive to nuance or context. Basic examples of image crafting are posting highlight reels of one-sided battles, or sharing just your rounds from an event, rather than screening the full battle. In the following, have we got time to do all of these examples?
No, but we've got examples here that we can direct you to, and they're so that
So I mean, so the example we've got here is a dancer who's had his rounds clipped from an event specifically for the sake of their channel. So that channel take highlights and repost them. They're actually divorcing the artist from his means of production, essentially, because they are dance events that dancer probably isn't getting paid from, and the channel may make revenue from it. I mean, it seems fine when we're taking part in it, and certainly I've partaken in this and seen this kind of stuff in the past and thought it was okay, but also there is sort of a deeper context to that actually somebody might be making income from that, and it's not the dancer. The next one was so many pages. Loss of cultural context. So
yeah, we've kind of we've seen some of how that happens in the circle. Examples.
Yeah, and just like with image crafting, nuance is lost and posting stuff online. You can also lose cultural context when you put things on TV, on stage, on other platforms, but how can we do it responsibly? The previous example with Steve in that clip shows sorry, I can't read my own writing. The previous example shows what limiting the sharing offers. In this example, in the next clip, it's a bit of a documentary by somebody called Monsell Il-Cosby Durden. He released a whole documentary of this in 2011, which is a huge bank of context behind some of the dance moves that we do. So it's got lots and lots of clips that sort of show the sort of things that Lauren was talking about, actually, with the Nicholas Brothers and Soul Train, and even further back to martial arts movies, comics, and all kinds of different references that dancers have pulled from to create these things in the first place. So in case anybody wants further context.
And then we did, just to summarise, we were looking then how that plays with the rise of individualism. And just wanted to finish with this quote from Kid Karam, who representing the UK. And do you want to have a read of them?
Yeah, so this is Karam in interview with us last year, and 2023.
Yeah.
Oh no, that can't be right.
Yeah.
In 2023, that's horrible, isn't it? In conversation around a book project that Lucy and I are doing, and he was talking about his journey specifically going to the Olympics, because he was one of the UK hopefuls. He was one of the leading UK hopefuls at the time, and unfortunately didn't make it to the top 16. And he said, winning Red Bull BC1 outweighs any crew accolade in breaking. It's perhaps this wasn't always the case. We see a lot more solo breakers who have no crews and just aren't bothered about them. I think the effort and level of care put into crews is much different now because there is much less reward. And this, there's, I think, is that yours, Lauren? It says crew, could it be a crew if you'd never even met? And obviously there are shifting parameters here with the online world. The shape of these cultural mechanisms that we use to glue the culture together, like crew, like ciphers, like style lineage, which you and I talk about all the time, b-boy names, and all these other mechanisms that we use to give hip hop its shape, that breaking takes its shape from, are lost, or at least start to feel a bit dislocated. Oh, and that's Lucy and I without the the extra filters.
And yeah, and we've got our references, and we've also got a fantastic critical breakdown playlist on Spotify. So yeah, any of these resources, then cool. Yeah. So thank you. I'm sorry that we over.
Yeah, we missed some of the slides. If we could probably make it available as well if anybody wants to catch up, and we would love to hear feedback about it.
And I'm going to take a picture of these.
Yeah.
Great.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.